nobody actually thought that they were going to clarify everything in this scene, did they? Everybody out there that's a fan of this series, you know full damn well this episode was going to end with Maomao right back at point one. That everything that Jinshi wants to get out there is going to completely go over Maomao's head, and that nothing will change. We're just going to keep the status quo. But at least this episode gives us a little insight into Maomao's character and how, again, she doesn't want to accept this information. She does not want to touch this information. And it does actually get into a little bit about how Maomao is that way. What has sort of drilled into her head that she doesn't want to accept this kind of stuff. That she sort of closed herself off because she spent so much of her life literally trying to share her emotion, her frustration as a child, and at some point closing that off. Closing up her ability to sort of be receptive to emotions and, yes, ill intent, which is very interesting. But yes, we at least got her to accept one aspect of Jinshi, and that's the fact that he has a frog. Yes, down there, Jinshi has a fairly big frog. Fairly big frog. At least that part is cemented in her head. Like, even at the very end, which, my gosh, that was a little bit unsettling how she said that. If he gets exposed, if his secret gets out there, I'll be sure to be right there to pay him back for this stuff by lopping it off. So if somebody finds out that he's not actually a eunuch and he's in the rear palace, if he gets exposed, I'll be right there with the snippers. I'll take off that frog. Don't worry, Jinshi. God dang. We're not progressing this relationship. We're regressing it quite a bit that she's willing to do that for him. I have no care for it. I don't need to care about the fact that he has that. It's not like I'm going to be seeing it. It's not like I'll ever have to see it. Yeah, sure. Really cool episode, though. Despite my frustrations, I honestly, deep down, I am frustrated with this episode. I am honestly frustrated by the fact that this writer seems to want to keep pulling it to the forefront to say, we're going to reveal it. It's time to reveal it. And it just doesn't. Like, stop. Can we stop this? Can we stop this whole Jinshi wants to reveal it to her and she doesn't want to receive it? Just do it or don't do it, or move on to something else. Because it is starting to get frustrating to me, because I was hoping to at least get somewhere with this conversation. Again, it does sort of get a little bit into what Maomao, why she closed herself off. But anyways, let's get into the episode proper. Again, opening up with actually Basen. Right from the very beginning, we have Basen at the party, and he is acknowledging the fact that everybody's starting to get restless, that everybody's trying to figure out, okay, where did this masked dude go? It does kind of indicate later on that everybody sort of knows who Jinshi is. They sort of know who the masked person is. Or at least probably some people know, and other people are getting whispers of it. But yes, getting into really his frustrations here. Basen is frustrated because I'm supposed to be attending to Jinshi, and it doesn't seem like I'm in the loop for anything. Everything's going on, and I feel useless. I should have gone with him. I should have gone against his orders and gone with him, and now something's happening. I'm sick of being in this meaningless role. And I kind of wonder if that's sort of hinting at the fact that, yes, as part of this family, as part of Gaoshun's family, this is their role to look after Jinshi, and he's never had that opportunity. It almost feels like this whole banquet, this meeting with Gaoshun being invited as well, is finally his first chance to sort of be at Jinshi's side. Now I can finally fulfill this role, and I feel like I'm still in a position where I can't do anything. I don't like this. But it also indicates the fact that, according to him, according to Basen, he doesn't believe that Shishou is involved with whatever's happening right now. And his reason for that sort of went to what my theory was the last episode, was that Shishou doesn't want something to happen right now because it's immediately going to go to him. If the actual, imperial family knows that Jinshi is here, they're going to know that he's here. And if something happens to Jinshi when he's here, the first suspect would be Shishou. Shishou brought him there for this banquet, and then suddenly something happens to Jinshi. Yeah, he doesn't want something to happen during this banquet. He doesn't want this. So at least according to him, and I kind of agree with his mindset, yeah, it can't be him. He can't be involved for the most part. It could be through proxy, like I said before, but for the most part, it shouldn't be. But yes, that's when we get into the frog discovery scene between Jinshi and Maomao. Immediately, Maomao's hand goes down there, and he's just like, can you move your hand? There's a situation down there. There's a situation down there. And again, immediately she does pick up on the fact that, yeah, he's definitely not a eunuch. And it all kind of clicks for her. She's finally clicking what she doesn't want to, what she subconsciously blocked. This is something that Maomao does not want to accept. I don't want to look into this. I don't want to know who Jinshi is. He's obviously important. He's obviously not a eunuch now. I don't want to think about it. Don't think about it. And this is really kind of the annoying thing, is because Jinshi wants her to know, and he immediately goes, okay, that saves me the trouble. let me explain things. You need to hear this. And it is sort of ominously getting into that later on with Gaoshun's inner thoughts. He needs to inform her because of what's coming up. And so when he goes to tell her, again, of course, she immediately cuts off. And again, I think of everything. I think I want, more than anything, Jinshi to understand why Maomao cuts it off. And again, it does get into a little bit of trauma stuff later on with Maomao's character, but it does feel like I think what Jinshi needs to know more than anything, and I'm hoping that at some point Gaoshun would explain this to him, or at least through proxy, through Maomao to him, will explain to Jinshi that there is a reason why Maomao is cutting you off. There's a reason why she'll never accept what you're trying to tell her. Even if he were to blurt out, this is who I am. I am the younger brother of the current emperor. I am the rightful heir to the throne, basically. She still wouldn't accept it. She would go, la, 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 la. I didn't hear any of that. Oh, you must be drunk or whatever. Funny joke. Moving on. Maomao will not accept it because she's afraid of accepting it because it will put her life in danger. Maomao is all about numero uno. She's all about trying to survive. This is a cutthroat world. If you're not in a high position of power, and even if you're in a high position of power, there's other people that are trying to cut you down. In this world, especially in her position as a commoner versus somebody like him, like as a noble or, again, imperial family, there is a danger for knowing too much stuff. There's a lot of dangers here. And it's sort of funny because it does seem like they all acknowledge that because they want to inform her to bring her into protection in order to save her from that trouble that's going to be coming up. She doesn't want to accept it. And I think if Jinshi knows that, it'll be a lot more easier for him to accept that she keeps pushing him away. But he doesn't get that. And again, I hope that somebody sort of instills that upon her. Because yes, immediately she's like, it's a frog. It's going to be a frog. It's definitely a frog. It's not a frog. It's a fairly big frog. There's not that big of frogs around here. It's this season, so they're fairly big. Why are you wiping off your hand? They're gross. Frogs are gross. They excrete. They give out mucus. What? Mucus gross? What? Really dorky. But then yes, Jinshi gets a little frustrated at her mocking and teasing and eventually pushes her down. Very gently places her down. Would you like to test that? And then lifts up her leg. The leg lift up was a part that bugged me in the preview. When I seen that leg lift up, I'm like, okay, dude, I hope you have some sort of... I hope that Mama opened a door for you at least, because that's a bit much. The lifting up the leg, that's a bit much. It doesn't seem... It sort of seems wrong, but in the moment of it, it makes sense because she's teasing him about that thing. Teasing him about his frog. And even she acknowledges it. I pushed him too far. I was teasing him about that thing, and now he's trying to prove it. And again, it gets more into a... Yes, more intimate moment. Like, he's literally getting in there, going in for the kiss and everything like that. But I do like the fact that during that time, Maomao is contemplating this. Yeah, I pushed him too far. I teased him too much. I shouldn't have done that. And then it goes to, okay, should I kick him? Should I kick him away? But she doesn't. And then he gets closer and closer to her. And I have, like, mixed feelings about this because on one end, I think it is an aspect that she has decided that I could kick him away, but she chooses not to. She doesn't fight him, but at the same time, I do have a worry about the fact that Maomao herself is so closed off emotionally, and again, like she mentions later on, the fact that she doesn't really read people's emotions or their ill intent, she sort of has an issue with seeing malice. She has an issue with seeing kindness. She has an issue with seeing intimacy, possibly. So there is a side of me that almost feels like she... I like this episode is sort of opening the door a lot with Maomao's character. It does feel like the writer is starting to get into Maomao's character and the fact that she doesn't get it. She literally doesn't get it. And we've seen that several times, but now it's putting it into words. It's putting it into her own internal dialogue and the idea that I don't understand this stuff. It doesn't make sense to me. And I really do hope that when it does come time to that maybe possibly Jinshi makes moves again, that he will have an understanding of that, or at least something of that will be clarified, or Maomao will express that she wants something like that. Because that's always been a struggle with me and Jinshi and Maomao's relationship, is that I haven't seen them as being intimate. I haven't never seen them as being a ship. That's why I never ship them. I never say Maomao x Jinshi. I want something to happen if it is open door, but I haven't seen it. And so I had a lot of worries with this whole segment because I haven't felt like they've developed that character and that relationship. And I think that's on purpose. And now it's getting it's kind of nice that I'm finally seeing that it is actually put into play by the writer that Maomao doesn't have that open door, that she doesn't really, it doesn't click for her, that she hasn't really accepted that because she doesn't know how to receive it nor read it. And so I'm kind of happy how they're playing this out. And I'm hoping that that will be a sort of story beat that Maomao learns to be receptive to that stuff. And yes, if she does care for Jinshi, opens that door for him. It's been good so far. It's been good so far. I was a little bit uncomfortable with Jinshi kind of pushing that much. I see it as a playful aspect. I don't see it as malicious. He's kind of caught up in the moment, and yes, he is still kind of a kid. This dude's a little kid. He's somebody that hasn't really matured too much. You see that with his toys and how he gets frustrated and stuff like that. He's very much so a teenager, idiot kid that has moved a little bit too much. So we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, then that's when the dog barks. Interrupts it all. Can't go that far. But yes, Lihaku shows up, brings him out of there. They start talking about the whole situation with the assassination attempt. It was interesting that Lihaku himself obviously does not at this point seem to know who Jinshi is. Even kind of questions why Maomao's here, which sort of makes sense to Lihaku if he's there to escort Gaoshun and a masked gentleman. Maomao to him should be with Gaoshun. She's there with Gaoshun. Why are you with this masked individual? Now, he could connect it in the idea that Gaoshun's son is with the masked individual and then make that connection there, but it doesn't seem like he knows. But yeah, they get into the fact that they were shot at. Immediately, Maomao realizes that, yeah, that we have this dog here, possibly the dog can find it, so they end up using the dog to be able to smell for the gunpowder, because it's obviously something that really bugs dogs specifically in their senses. And yeah, as Maomao brings up that idea, immediately Jinshi gets frustrated. He gets a little mad, and she does kind of realize that, yeah, I kind of did provoke him a lot. I said a lot of ridiculous things. He's probably angry. But also, yes, joking about the fact that, yeah, I kind of mocked his little frog. For somebody as beautiful and full of confidence of his appearances, yeah, his frog must be quite dignified. And I called it a fairly big frog. Girl, seriously. But yeah, they do the investigation. They basically plant some cloths with some blood on it. They get Basen involved. Basen seems to be very frustrated by the fact that he's not completely in the loop on what's going on. I'm wondering if that will actually turn into a thing, because it does seem like later on they show Basen, or at least Gaoshun's looking at Basen, and he does seem very frustrated. That all this stuff is happening around somebody that he is now finally getting a chance to serve. Again, he's finally getting that position that Gaoshun's always had. This is our role as his family. And it does seem like he's a little frustrated by the fact that he doesn't seem to be in the loop. Right back here, he was saying, I'm not very involved. I want a bigger role. Here, he's finally given that role. He's not involved with the investigation. He doesn't even know where Jinshi is or if he's even alive. They just bring him this cloth and say, hey, go find this person. He doesn't know what's going on. He's out of the loop. I can see his frustration here. But yeah, they end up framing some dude, then saying they're going to search the entire forest. That triggers the guys to go look for the gun. They already found the gun, and yeah, they've nabbed their person. Specifically, what Jinshi says about the gun is interesting, because he does point out the fact that this is a Western gun. This is a gun that he hasn't really seen. It looks like it's a style that is made in the West. Which, yes, later on, Maomao does sort of think about, specifically, in the idea that, yes, technically this envoy just showed up. These twins just showed up. Then there's a story that Gaoshun had about these twins and one of the daughters getting pregnant, or at least sneaking out. She's right here finally connecting the two of those stories together. The fact that the two envoys could have been the story that Gaoshun was telling. Again, like I said back there, I connected it immediately to the envoys, because what Maomao picked up on is that it seems like he's obviously hiding the true intent of the story. And what I said back there is my theory is that probably the whole aspect of the pregnancy, the fact that they were two daughters, a whole bunch of aspects of that story was probably fake just to get Maomao off the scent of who he's talking about. The only thing in that story that was true was that there's two individuals that look very similar and some big mirrors, and that one got out. And so I assume that probably means, yes, what happened when the two envoys showed up? They had a lot of really big mirrors. And they specifically said, that's very expensive and very rare. So these are very treasured mirrors. And why would you have two of them? So yeah, with them showing up, the envoys showing up and giving away a whole bunch of these big mirrors, they probably had two extra mirrors, and one of them used it to get out of the room. And so Gaoshun's trying to figure out that whole thing. How could one of them, if they did, get out of that room? And yes, right here, she's also connecting the idea of, yeah, they probably brought something. If one of them got out, what did they do? Could they have given somebody a box? And yes, we did see very briefly after the episode with the whole goddess dance where Jinshi was dancing. Yes, it cut over to one of them and they had a box. They were frustrated that it didn't go the way they wanted it to, and they had one other plan and it was a box there. And now they have a box over here with a gun in it. So yeah, it sort of feels like at least the story is trying to push us to think, oh, maybe that box was what had this gun in it. Could possibly be. If it's from the West, they're from the West, they had a box, they got out of there, they gave it to somebody, possibly. At least in Maomao's mind right here, it's connecting it all together. Can I see that? I don't know. I don't see why they would want to do that. If they just got done trying to, well, what did the envoy want? The envoy didn't want to see the emperor. The envoy wanted to see his brother. Why would she want to see the brother? Possibly to kill him. These envoys could know that this current emperor is not the rightful heir to the throne, and thus they wanted to take out the actual rightful heir, and how to do that is that they had to find the real one. So they were purposely going, oh, where's your brother? So they can get close to the brother and kill him. So this could all be connected, that's their end goal, is they want to take out Jinshi. Why they know that and why they would want to take out Jinshi specifically, that's the question mark. They could know possibly that if they kill the current emperor, the one that's sitting on the seat right now, Jinshi's brother, it won't change anything. But yeah, cutting back to where they caught the two individuals, it does seem like, according to Gaoshun, that they pretty much covered up the whole thing as the whims of the masked man. Nobody knows about what happened, just the fact that the people that were involved, they just disappeared. Nobody's seen them again. They're not taking the stage anymore. Pretty much locked up. You're not going to see them anymore, but nobody knows what happened to them. Again, they're completely covering it up, which I kind of wonder the reasoning for that. They probably made an agreement with Shishou that they did not want to have it made public because it would probably put them into question. Essentially, Jinshi and them, they don't want to stir up anything. Because if they did say, yeah, there was an incident here, it might cause a problem with Shishou. It will cause a big political battle. They don't want that. They don't want that anyway. Again, there's a lot of emphasis that Shishou himself is in a very powerful position, and it does seem to stem around the idea of their resources and their power. But yeah, one other thing with Gaoshun is very briefly he notes that, yeah, Jinshi looks tired. Obviously, this whole incident took a lot out of him, but he notes that because he's standing here in the place of Lord Jinshi, which indicates that, yes, publicly, it seems like Gaoshun is there as sort of a envoy or a replacement for Jinshi, that he is sort of signifying him in his place. Again, covering up the fact that the masked man is actually Jinshi, I'm here in Jinshi's place. And it doesn't seem like he can really get involved with anything, specifically knowing the fact that, yes, again, his son's over there, looks very frustrated. Essentially, he's having to leave it at Jinshi and his own son. And the idea that this has to be kind of handled by them, I can't act. Where normally he probably would resolve the situation. But yeah, then some individual walks up and asks him if it's too dull for a eunuch and kind of points out the fact that, yeah, this is something that Gaoshun has apparently accepted himself. It says specifically, I became a eunuch. I cast away my name, and I took on the name of Gaoshun. It kind of implies the idea that he chose to. Which, yeah, the guy thinks that you were under the empress's wrath and became a eunuch, poor you kind of thing. But it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seemed to, the way that he says this, it almost sounds like he himself chose to. Like this is a duty that he chose to take upon himself. I'm kind of curious. But again, he could be similar to Jinshi. He obviously has a son, so he wasn't always a eunuch. But it kind of makes me wonder if he chose afterwards, or again, he's not necessarily one. But I think he did become a eunuch because he says, I became a eunuch, cast away my name, and I took on the name of Gaoshun. This banquet, they still treat me as a member of the Ma household. Which is kind of interesting because it almost makes it feel like, whereas as a, yes, of course, a eunuch, he's seen as less. Here, he's kind of restored his own name. But yes, this guy with Gaoshun goes on to say that, yes, it's a shame that beautiful masked individuals didn't come to the hunt. Though if he did join, it would overshadow everything else, obviously pointing out his beauty. He says that they say the masked one bears a burn mark that scars his noble face. I hear tonight that he keeps himself locked up. The emperor must be worried to think that he is the crown prince. And Gaoshun notes that there's no sign of reverence from this guy for the crown prince. Gaoshun believes that everyone here is trying to figure out if the masked guest of honor is truly fit to inherit the throne. But he specifically says his majesty's younger brother. Almost like it's indicating here that, again, people know who the masked individual is, they just don't say it. But it does seem like people want to sort of prod to find out if he's worthy of it, if he should inherit it. Which, yes, I kind of think gets into sort of the deeper plotline here, and it seems like Gaoshun is kind of getting into later on with the episode, that, yeah, something's coming up. That this whole thing right here, why Jinshi is pushing to tell Maomao is that he wants her to be protected and in the loop because something's coming. And I think what that is, again, based on what Gaoshun says later on, he can't remain in this temporary position forever. Almost implying the idea that Jinshi was put in this position, again, like I've said before, probably to protect him from a threat, and that the current emperor, his brother, is keeping the front stage in order to shield him. And Jinshi could have been doing investigations this entire time. They indicated very early on that Jinshi was sort of this eunuch that would go in there and test the purity of the women. If they came on to him, the emperor would get rid of them. But there could be an aspect here that Jinshi doesn't want to get out from that position, that he's staying there too long. Like, that may have been an intent for him to be there, but he can't stay there too long. This implies that, yes, certain groups, certain people are probably trying to pull him to the forefront. They know he's there and being shielded, and he needs to come to the forefront now. He can't stay in that position forever. Eventually, he has to reveal to everybody, yes, I am the real one. I am here. Don't worry. I'm taking the position. It says specifically that he is the Moon Prince, which just does imply to me that he is of the goddess bloodline. They mentioned the whole thing with that whole trial, the idea that it's people that were from the West or whatever that are of this bloodline, they're the true ones. And it could be that they have seen that he is of that blood for some reason, that he has been sort of dignified as the true one. And there could be an aspect of where they don't see the current emperor as being of his father's bloodline, of the previous emperor's bloodline. I don't know. It seemed to me more implying that there's something about Jinshi's bloodline, specifically who his mother is, that makes him a lot more special, which could go against my theory of his mother being Ado. It could be something else, but we'll see. It does seem to put a lot of emphasis that he is the true emperor, that he is this moon prince, and that eventually he needs to come to the forefront, that there's something coming, and that's why they wanted to get Maomao on that no, because she will be very critical for what's to come. But yeah, that's when we have the scene with Maomao and Jinshi. Him showing at the door. He wants to tell her something. He apologizes and she apologizes before just going into some really goofy inner thought process there. And then he gives her what she's been waiting for so long. Like, I feel like it was like episode 8 of the first season that the Ox Bazaar was actually promised to her. And now she's finally got it. And she'll do anything for him now. She's gonna owe him a lot for getting this thing. But no, this is where we get into that whole aspect of Maomao herself, which I thought was very interesting, and the idea that she does sort of acknowledge that she's really bad at kind of reading people's emotions. Now, it's interesting because she says that right after they apologize, and Jinshi's tapping his foot. And she's like, I can't even see him, but I know his expression. Which does sort of, in my opinion, kind of show how much she knows Jinshi and how much she sort of reads him. In a lot of scenes, she will immediately look over to Jinshi and notice his discomfort, notice his anxiety. She knows him very well, and she observes him, which I do think will possibly later on come to a story beat of why she accepts that she likes Jinshi, and the idea that she likes watching him, likes examining him, likes to read him because she's interested in him. But it was funny because she's wondering what Jinshi's thinking. I've never been good at reading people's emotions. It gets into the fact that, yes, when she was very young, after she was born, she was pretty much raised by the courtesans. And they were, of course, obviously very dedicated to their jobs. They couldn't pay attention to her. It wasn't until they were done with their job before they can actually do that. And what she found is that I eventually became a baby that doesn't cry because they were so busy with that and they never paid attention to me and I was sitting there crying. Eventually, I cut off those emotions. And she says, maybe that's why I struggled to recognize both kindness and the malice in people. I wonder, again, that is an aspect that she has had moments in her life, again, when she was young, that she was expressing frustration, she was expressing something that wasn't going right. As a child, my only way of telling anybody what's going on with me is crying. I can't communicate. And so she's constantly sitting there crying and eventually at some point closing that off. Choosing to, because this doesn't prove anything, because this doesn't get the attention that I'm expecting it to, why do it? It doesn't get a result. And I found at some point I just stopped. Now, why that connects to the idea of not recognizing kindness or malice, I think that could be an aspect that she just doesn't know emotions because she didn't get that care that a child should get in those early years of a child, not being able to develop those indications, not being able to kind of seed in her mind the indications of what is good and what is wrong. When somebody does nurture a child when they're hurting, that's an aspect of kindness. When somebody lashes out at the child, they find that is an aspect of malice. That wasn't good. They did that. That wasn't right. And I think that's sort of what they're getting in with Maomao's character. And it does make sense to her character that she is so kind of, her responses to a lot of people's emotions is kind of broken. Like when there's scenes where she kind of points out that somebody did something, and most people would realize, I'm going to say this and they will probably lash out at me. I'm going to reveal the truth of what this bad person did. And she's kind of thrown off when they, dart at her. She doesn't get social cues really well. And that's really sort of the detriment of Jinshi. That's why he doesn't seem to get, which I'm kind of surprised that he hasn't picked up on at this point. He doesn't seem to get how to get around that because he doesn't know how to navigate it. So it's sort of the same for both of them. With Maomao and Jinshi, it feels like the both of them sort of have the same problem. They don't know how to read each other at all. As much as they are kind of drawn to each other, or at least Maomao is stuck with him, but Jinshi is drawn to her. He doesn't know how to read her, and she doesn't know how to read him. It's some interesting chemistry. But yeah, he gives the gift, immediately tries to tell her everything else. She just geeks out and hears none of it. I like at some point she's like, it's this. And he's like, yeah, I worked really hard. No, that's not the point. I have to tell you something else. Completely locks about. And of course she looks at him like the big old smile and he just can't take it. He's like, oh crap. Now I'm completely thrown off because she's so happy. And I just like the fact that she's happy. They're dorks. They're absolutely dorks, and this is never going to get resolved. I've established this point. This is never going to get resolved. But anyways, that was the episode. Again, at the very end, Gaoshun says some very ominous stuff about the fact that he can't stay hidden for too long. It's going to come to the forefront, the moon prince and all that stuff. But good episode. The preview for the next episode looks like we're going to get back into the attendants for the new Lady in Waitings for Gokyo. Hopefully one of them is not trying to kill Gokyo like everything else is trying to kill her. It looks like we have a brief shot of Shishou. Shu's finally going to come to the forefront. I feel so bad for Shishou. So if she gets a little segment in the episode where she could have fun because this poor girl is just locked up in this rear palace, never to get attention, I'm all for it. My poor Shishou finally getting some attention. But we'll see. But that's my thoughts on this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed my video. As always, if you did, hit the like button down below, comment. Let me know what's the episode. Again, if you're a source material reader, I don't need to answer any questions that I have. I'm just having fun speculating. Additionally, if you like this content, you want to support channel more, I'll link in the description below. Greatly appreciate it. But until next time, you'll take care.